My little frog has visited me this morning, so bear with me. Basically, I want to start out with just a little tidbit here. I forget which one I have to do. A minister told his congregation, "Next week I plan to preach about the sin of lying. To prepare you for my sermon, I want you all to read Mark 17. Okay. The following Sunday, the minister asked all those who had read Mark 17 as requested to raise their hands. Most of the congregation raised their hands. The minister smiled and said, "Mark has only 16 chapters. I will now proceed with my sermon on the sin of lying." Now, aren't you glad? Aren't you grateful that I'm going to move on to something else? So, gratitude. My gratitude journey began really in earnest in like the late 80s. I was living in Oklahoma, and most of you know that kind of a little bit about my story, and I'd had my daily word from my mother-in-law since I was like 18, before I had my son, and I was, as being a young person and new to the adult part of life, I didn't always follow it. I didn't always read it every day and do all those things, but it was always a part of my ongoing. And so in the late 80s, Unity happened to send out this just one-page piece of paper that you could copy off and make it a 21-day gratitude journal. Now, it was seemed like a really simple thing to do. Like most things, you look at it and go, "Oh yeah, I could do that. That's no problem." And so I copied it off, and I started my gratitude journal. And every day you had to put down 3 people that you were grateful for. And this was in the morning before you even started your day. And then in the evening, you came back and you did 2 more things that you were grateful for that day. So those morning things and they could be people that were still with us or those who had gone on. And so I thought, okay, yeah, this is going to be easy. So I started, and boy, those 3 people were, after a while, 21 days worth of people. It was like, okay, where do I go from here? My list got longer, because the more I thought about it, the more grateful I was, the more people's names came forward. And so that was kind of sort of the beginning of my journey. And then flash forward, and also I was coming up on my 30s, and so the next 10 years we're finishing up high school with my son and all those wonderful things, and then I flash forward to coming back here in 1990. So and then I saw, and I'd known Unity, and I had seen there was no Unity Church in Muskogee, that it finally had closed its doors, and I saw up on the road, up on the highway, the sign that's in our parking lot, and it was like, Unity Church. I can go to the Unity Church. And I was so excited. And I came in here that first morning, and there were chairs on the side, fold-up chairs over here. And I can't sit on these pews. I'm too short. My legs are too short. Can't reach the ground. Sometimes I take my shoes off and cross my legs. Can't do that anymore. And so the side chairs were where I sat, and I sat over there, and my mom was with me. She was a Southern Baptist girl raised in that church, not real, loyal to it, basically, but she sat beside me, and the sun came out, and it came through the skylight, and it just hit right on me, and I was just like, wow, I'm so grateful to be here. So that kind of cemented me coming back. And the first thing I know, I'm bookkeeping, and then I asked to be on the board, and my journey went on. So gratitude for me has taken another level over the last few years. And excuse me if I get a little emotional here. Most of you know this last year has been really difficult after losing my son, but it's gotten me through. Sorry. So I'm going to recite just a couple of little stories about gratitude, because I don't want to take up too much time here. One of those was Easter. My great nephew, one of them, was around 4, And so my sister planned an Easter little celebration at her house. Well, he had already celebrated with his mom and dad at home, and he came in the door of my sister's house, and everybody else was gathered, his aunt and uncles, and, all the other little kids, and my great niece Madison, and my great nephew, the other boy, sorry, Dean. And so he comes in the door with his mom and dad, and he's got his hands out like this, and he's carrying these two beautiful black and white zebra striped eggs. And he's just like, he's in awe, and he's just like showing them to everybody. And he's got his hands. And so pretty soon my sister brings out his little pail that she'd made for him also, because the others had already done their stuff. And he's go over to the table, and she had a table that was a bench on the backside, and he gets in the very corner, and my sister sits down next to him, and I'm sitting next to her. And he's taking these things out, and here's more of these zebra-striped eggs in the top. So he's just like, he's having great fun. He lays those aside and gets down to the chewy little, gel eggs and all those kind of things, the little wrapped ones that look like footballs. And he's laying those aside, and he gets down to the bottom of the pail, and he just scoops up, and he brings up these two Cadbury eggs. If you know what those are, everybody knows those foil-wrapped Temptations by the cashier station. And he says, "Oh, I've been waiting years for these." He's 4 years old. "I've been waiting years for these." My sister and I were cracking up. Nobody else really heard what he said, but it was like, oh my God, it was perfect. So that's one of those gratitudes. And children are and when they're in awe about things, that's gratitude. And they just express it naturally. We as children did that. My son, when he was about a year old, he was born in January. So his first Christmas, he was almost 1. And he was walking and talking. And we waited one night to set up the Christmas tree. And he was in bed, already asleep. And so we set that up. And the next morning, I gave him his breakfast. He didn't come out in the living room until after that. And I bring him out, and he stops. And I had already turned the lights and everything on. He walks over toward it, and I think, oh, he's going to be like taking things off. And he's just standing there, and he goes, he's pointing at these different things on this tree, and he never touched it. He would just stand there in awe and point out the different parts of the tree. So it was just so sweet. And then, so my gratitude kind of process a couple of years ago, and I found myself kind of like you were, standing in the line at the post office, line out the door. You're waiting, you're fiddling. You're going, okay, what's the hold up in there? And I finally get in the door, and I'm getting closer to the end of the counter. And and then all of a sudden I just had this thought. It was like, wow, I just need to stop for a minute and let go of all that. And I look at the clock, and I say, I'm grateful for the clock on the wall. And then I'm grateful for all these wonderful things that the post office has for you to mail things out. And I'm grateful for all these people that are in line using this service, and these people who are serving them. And it just kind of rolled on, and I just felt the whole room change. That whole room just kind of lightened up. And I thought, wow, okay, this works. And so the last time that I was really into being grateful, consciously grateful, I was driving to Oklahoma after my son passed. And I had just heard on the news where all these truck drivers were having such a hard time delivering stuff to us. The supply chains were getting low. And just all these things were happening. They were being held back at different places, and they were having a hard time because fuel was so high. It was just all these things. And driving down the interstate, it was like, and I was a truck driver for 2 years when my son was small with my husband. And I know how hard that job is. I know how hard that is and how lonely it can be. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to bless each one of these trucks as I pass them, or they pass me. And I just say, I'm grateful for your service. I'm grateful for your service. Sometimes it'd be like 7 or 9 trucks in a row. So you're like, okay, I'm getting there. And then you have a little break, and then here would come another whole onslaught of them, depending on which interstate you were on, which way you were going. And it was like, okay, that is just the most amazing thing, because gratitude, when you use it, it's an energy. It's an energy. There was a young man who came, one more story. to us to do a workshop here. And he was from Germany. And you can understand him. He was very fluent in English, but he was a doctor. And he was traveling around, teaching about what he knew. And so his whole premise was, and it's something that Reverend Larry touched on last Sunday, is that our body, we used to think of our body holding our soul in. No, our soul is like out about it as being 54 feet all around us in every room. It's a big circle of this wonderful energy. So when you're meeting someone and you make eye contact with them at least 10 feet away, and say, in your eyes, you say hello, and you say hello when they get closer. It's just like they're enveloped in that wonderful energy of gratitude that you have for all the people around you. And it just lightens the day. It makes things easier. And then I read recently about a hospital who the administrators kept wondering why people were always talking about them so negatively. Well, it was because nobody was making eye contact. Coming out of the pandemic, it was so hard for staff to be there every day rather than, putting out energy. But if you put out that energy, it just grows and you feel light. You feel like you're walking on air. And so they established a program where they retrained their staff to, within 10 feet, make eye contact if it's possible. Within 5 feet, say hello. And if you get no response, that's okay. Yeah, it's okay. You've put out some good energy. So, because it is really about you. It's about you spreading this wonderful, wonderful energy of gratitude. And thinking about the children and their wonderful awe. And when you can see those kinds of things, how it just reiterates within you your energy of gratitude and what it can do for you. And that's where we are in this church. We are in a whole big energy of gratitude. And so I just want to thank you today for letting me speak to you, and we will continue on. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, one last thing before I go, which I forgot. Hang on a second. There's a new little video out done by Louis Schwartzberg, and he's made some fantastic videos, movies. It's called, Gratitude Revealed. So Louis Schwartzberg, look it up. It's been on Netflix, and I believe they've done it on PBS. And he also has a wonderful one called Fantastic Fungi. For those of you who sometimes don't think mushrooms are a good thing. So thank you.
Thank you, Shar. Yes, we are grateful for you, Shar. She is the energy of love and gratitude, and every person that she meets just receives a gift of her love. So the next follow-up that I wanted to do with gratitude and love